Hey everybody, Andy Bacoris from Carry Your Cross here. I made a post on Carry Your Cross the other day that really just said we need more strong men in the church. And it got a crazy response. We got so many messages flooded from both men and women, young and old, asking for more content like this, asking for books to read on this manner. I had people who are becoming priests reach out to me asking about what they can do in order to help this crisis. And listen, it's a major issue. It's a huge issue. I think many people know this. I think there's a lot of people who feel this but have never been able to, really put their finger on it. They've been either raised in a Catholic or Christian household and just don't really feel like going to church or don't want to grow in their faith because they know that it just doesn't feel good or feel cool to them. Listen, there's a masculinity crisis in the church and in the world right now. It's big. It's not good, and we need to do something about it. And so pages like Carry Your Cross, pages and other people and brands around in this community need to stand up, and we need to start bringing men together in powerful ways in order to combat this and to really just come together and fight the good fight. Listen, I'm just going to kind of go through what I meant in that post and talk a little bit deeper on it. Really, just talk a little bit more about what I was thinking about when I was writing that post. And it really just brings me back to growing up in church, going to church every Sunday, and literally feeling like I couldn't even sit in the pews. I was bored out of my mind. I felt like I had no reason to be there for a few different reasons. Listen, one, I never learned in CCD or in Sunday school growing up really, truly what the Eucharist really was. What we were doing there in Mass, what it meant when people were coming in and genuflecting, before the altar when walking into their pew. Really had no idea. Priests never really taught me that in a strong way. I grew up with priests who, honestly, they were too nice. They were trying to be my friend. They'd be walking down the aisle trying to high five me and give me a hug, and I'm like, it just wasn't cool, especially as a middle school, high school kid growing up. You just can't really relate. You want someone who you can look up to and you can fully respect. You don't want somebody who is going to try to be your best friend and just tell you everything's going to be great. And I remember sitting in the pews, and literally everything and all the sermons that I would hear is about love your neighbor, kumbaya. Nothing really hardcore, nothing that really hit the soul, nothing that when I was in high school going through those times, what it really is to be a man or even be a woman in these tough times where you're going through high school or college, and if you're not having sex, you're a loser. Like you're a complete loser. If you're not buying in to the BS that the world and Hollywood is feeding you into what it is to be cool and how you should be as a man, then you're a loser and you're an outcast. And that the Christian life, that following Christ, that going by His commandments is soft. And it's kind of girly. It's kind of feminine, and that's how I thought about it for a long time, until I started reading different books. Finally, getting a chance to meet some amazing priests, like my great friend Father Jay Mello. Being able to meet other strong men in the community that would help me. Luckily, I grew up with a fantastic father. A lot of people don't have that. I was lucky to have that. But I felt like, you're still missing something when your spiritual fathers aren't giving you what you need as a man. Listen, when you have weak spiritual fathers, you get weak men, and those weak men become weak fathers. And we're living in a world where there's been a lot of weak fathers in the home and then leaving the home, and families are being raised, and young kids are turning into men who never had that guidance. And it's a mess. It's totally a mess. And listen, it doesn't start in the world, it starts in the church. And the world follows the church. And as the church goes, so does the world. As the family goes, so does the world. And that's what we're seeing. And it's a time that, right now we need to stand up as men in the church and bring people back together. We need to begin leading in a way that, we have never done before. We need to begin coming together as men and building these communities of strong men together. Because that's another thing. I never had the opportunity to go to great men's groups growing up because there was nothing like that. There was nothing like that. And to be honest, they're still pretty hard to find. So when we talk about what we can do about it, when different priests are reaching out to me or pastors of churches reaching out and saying, what can we do about this? Listen, we need some strong men groups with strong spiritual fathers talking about authentic masculinity and really who Christ was and who the strong men in the Bible were and how we can follow their lead. I read a book that really changed my life a while back called Wild at Heart. And Wild at Heart was about true masculinity and how there's a masculinity crisis in the world. And it changed my life because it really showed me that we are living on a battlefield. This life is not sunshine and rainbows. We're living in a life where we don't just have our own battles against temptation, against sin, about what's right and wrong, but there's also a battle for our soul. A battle for our soul against good and evil fighting each other on a battlefield for us. It's a crazy story. It's not just a story, it's 100% true. And guess what? You're living in it right now. It's a beautiful thing. It can be scary, but it's challenging, but it's intriguing. And guess what? That's what I never learned. That's what so many of us never learned growing up. This battle that we're in, that we are taking part in. And guess what? In a battle, you need to choose a side. And if you choose the wrong side, then bad things can happen. But if you don't choose a side, then you're going to get run over in the middle. And I think it's there. We're living in a time now where you need to choose a side, and you need to make that known. And strong Catholic men, strong Christian men are going to be the leaders that need to stand up and bring us and the world back to God in these times like this. When we look in the Bible and we see people like Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Gideon, Samson, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of these people were adventurers, judges, and warriors. They were men. And we are living in a crisis of men in the church, with our priests, with laity, and there are strong men out there, because I know many of them now through this page, Carry Your Cross, and by really reaching out and trying to find people like this. But we need to do a better job of bringing more people together. And so I'm going to take that as a huge action item on the Carry Your Cross side and try to start bringing together some sort of men's group. And I want the rest of the pages here to come together and continue to do this, together, all of us, to really capture this, because it's such an important issue. It's so important. It's what brought me back to the faith, and I think it's what can bring so many others too.